It's actually already... Yes. Yeah.
As soon as possible.
Yeah. Right, I'm gonna find you. Where Defense of Faith. Videos. You got the stream. Ah, what's the stream?
I'm trying to find it.
It's not on your page yet.
Okay, it's still starting. Okay.
Ah, I see. Alright, alright. So is it recording us now, or is it starting?
It should be picking us up now, but
yeah.
we'll do... Ah, here we go.
Okay. Hey.
Not live.
Not live. Ari, not live.
Yeah.
Ari and live. I had to learn.
Why is it not working? Okay, actually, let me check something and make sure that it's not showing up on one of the, like, Twitch channels.
Yes.
Because that would be impossible.
Yeah. Right, I'm gonna find you. So it's got a whole new thing now. Faith.
Oh no, it's on.
Oh my goodness, it is on. Yeah,
it was a delay. Oops.
Okay, I need to send this round. There we go. I've just told everyone that I'm sending it around. Oh, got another subscriber. Thank you, Mr. Burning Hammer. 1337.
All right.
He found me through Lotcha Tales as well. That's been a godsend. That really has.
There we go. So chat's working. Okay, this is really awesome. I really like this new layout.
Yeah, it is cool, but it doesn't. Is it coming up on your main page? Because that's quite handy, isn't it? I mean, you don't want them to. Oh, yep. No, it is. It's awesome. On your home. It is on your home. Okay. So hang on. Let me find some people. Hello. Yeah, let's. So the topic today. Do you want to get us started, or shall I?
So the topic for today is going to be music.
Yes. Not ambience. It was oh, what was it? It was yeah. It was something. Immersion. That was it. Immersion. Yeah, yeah. Me. Oh, there's lots to talk about. Have you ever played Barbie: The Magic of the Pegasus, the video game? Because that soundtrack is stellar. No, I haven't played it either. I just thought, because you were talking about subjectivity, you see. Excuse me? Excuse me? Oh wow! That you said you could do an English accent, and that was pretty good. You slip it for you. That is I am an expert. It was very exaggerated, but of course it was. Apparently, you can't be heard. If
No.
Yeah.
What?
Have you I don't know. Can you? Have you ever played Barbie: The Magic of the Pegasus, the video game? Am. That soundtrack. This might just be for one person. Stellar. Sorry, I'm. I haven't played it.
Okay, no, I can't hear myself. I apologize. You're gonna hear the echo because I was listening to that. Let me check my audio settings.
Something is happening. Something is happening.
That is strange. Because my microphone, it's detecting that I should be broadcasting. Like, my voice is being broadcast, and you can hear. I don't know why the stream can't. Okay, let me mute the sound on the stream for a minute and listen back to myself, see if I can figure out what's wrong. No. Oh! I can't hear myself. My
you
audio
can now?
Yes, my audio.
Wait, okay. He's on now. He's on now. Apparently you're on now.
Are you talking to someone in the chat, or is it somewhere else?
Yes, the wonderful Natasha Romanoff of my Lego videos. She is informing me of the status of our live stream.
All right.
Brilliant.
And let me hop on real quick. So I'm in. I've got the chat open here. So hello to chat. There we go.
Hello, chat! Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And welcome to Darin and I's Tea and Crumpets!
Yep.
We're talking about music and video games, as we said before, but if you weren't here, it is a good time to start now, as there are no more technical difficulties, so I suppose this is where we begin. We are going to be discussing the very valid topic, because it's all about immersion in video games, and music is very important to immersion. Personally, this is something that maybe Darin will suddenly say. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Hara.
Where are you talking to these people? Because I don't see.
I think they should probably chat in chat.
Okay, no, it's fine. I just wanted to make.
Individually.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't. I'm not just missing it in the live chat. So
I will join the chat. I'm sending the link out, and I've just realized
it's fine. I don't need. People don't need to talk in the chat. I thought it was a technical problem, and I wasn't getting informed of the chat. But no, we're good. But actually, it's funny that you would say that, Peter, because I am very much guilty of a lot of times I completely turn off the music when I'm playing a game.
Yeah,
and I provide my own soundtrack. Not by, like, I don't sing. I
could just imagine that in The Witcher, you know. Sleazy!
No, but I will a lot of times have playlists, and I actually have playlists titled after the game that I listen to it when I
way. I guess that is partly immersion though. That shows the importance of music for you.
Yeah, it does, because sometimes I think it's that some games I don't like the music. There's something well, not that I don't like the music, but there are some games that I think the music doesn't fit the game. And actually, I'm going to use this as an example of this, opening up, which this is one of the ones that actually I need to pull up my podcast notes that I have.
You're gonna say I need a poo, and I was really confused. And I was like, okay. You're like, I'm gonna pull up the podcast. I was like,
to me, one of the soundtracks that I actually really love the soundtrack, but I don't think it fits the game, is Halo. And I'm and I'm actually gonna mention specifically
game?
The Halo 1 and 2 mainly, because I don't know much about the games. And I don't know. Just for me personally, I love the soundtracks, and I think they're amazing. And they're actually one of the earliest really good game soundtracks. You know, as a soundtrack. Like, obviously, lots of video games have had theme songs since Mario and Zelda and Donkey Kong, and they have really good and memorable themes, but it's not the same as having a good soundtrack to a game, And I think Halo, to me, was one of the first games that when I heard the music, I was like, wow, this is actually really good music outside of the game. Like some games, the soundtracks are good and they fit the game well, but then others, they actually are that music, that's just good music. I actually listened to the Halo soundtrack, or not the entire thing, but I listened to some certain songs off the Halo soundtrack just, to listen to, just because I think they're really cool. But
I know Installation 04 is a godsend among men. Wait, I'll link people in the apparently it started cutting out again.
That's not good.
But a godsend. Wait, Installation 04.
Let me try. I'm using push to talk. Let me see if I can turn off push to talk.
Oh, yeah, just make it constant.
There we go. That's
make it constant.
I also have to turn that off.
Otherwise, you're gonna
on
have to have your finger on the thing for ages. There we go. There we go. 04. What? It's an unbelievable piece. It's so fantastic, but I can't see how it doesn't fit.
Well, to me, one of the ones is One Final Effort, which I actually guess this is actually from Halo 3. I'm not sure. I'm not very into the Halo franchise. I don't know that much about the... I mean, I've played the first one, and I've played a little bit... I haven't actually beaten any of them, actually, and I've never played the third one at all, but...
Can you
that is
yes.
That is the soundtrack for. This is the One Final Effort, which I think is an amazing song. And to me, it's just the sequence that it's a part of, just doesn't fit with the what's going on in the game at the time when the song's on.
Do you do that for Half-Life?
For Half-Life,
because a lot of people talk about that, and I personally, I love the soundtrack for Half-Life, and I think it fits, but only just. It is on the cusp because it's this kind of heavy beat kind of tempo thing. To
me, Half-Life has two parts. There are a few songs, the credit songs for the original, the end credits for Half-Life, the HEV suit theme,
yes,
and I think the name of the credit song is actually, I think it's Claxton Beat. Claxton Beat is one of the songs on the Half-Life soundtrack, and I love that song. It's one of my favorite. In fact, I'll get a link to it real quick. But I have to say... Oh, go ahead while I find this.
No, I really... It's a mixed bag, apparently, for most people. Personally, I like it. I'm a big fan of music and video games, and most of the time, for instance, this isn't a video game, but I even use the Lord of the Rings soundtrack as a timer, because I know when it ends. It ends on about an hour and 15 minutes in, so when I'm at work or something, I'll just put on the Fellowship of the Ring, and I'll know when I've worked for an hour and 15 minutes because the thing is over. But it also kind of, it keeps your mind away from it. And I can see how, for instance, with you changing the music, if you're having a playlist that you're familiar with and comfortable with, you begin to sit into the game a lot more, because you're not thinking too much on the music. Sorry, for some reason, sorry, I'm doing that. My dog does that. So I was saying if it worked. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought. But if you're familiar with something, when if you're listening to a piece of music and it's new, you start kind of focusing on that because you're like, oh wow, this is new. And I know The Witcher 3, I did that a lot, and sometimes I'd lose fights. I would continue a fight because the music was so good that I couldn't not do the fight because, without the fight, it would be...
And I will say that for me on Half-Life soundtrack, there's two parts of it. There's the normal, songs that played at different parts of the game. Kind of the atmospheric music and stuff. And I think that I agree with you that those fit what's going on in the game very well. And that's, to me, they sound... That's the thing I have the problem with the Halo is that during the sequences in the game that some of the songs play in Halo... It's like it sounds like something that should be in a fantasy epic, like the way the music is, and it doesn't fit with that kind of the sci-fi theme as much to me as we're with Half-Life. The music, most of the soundtrack. There's a few exceptions that I mentioned and I linked in the chat. Those are kind of the exceptions that I really like those songs just to kind of listen to outside of it. But most of the music in Half-Life, I wouldn't listen to on its own, and that's the opposite of Halo. I listen to a lot of the music on its own.
Actually,
but
Half-Life I do sometimes. Admittedly, I have you. What's the one with the rocket that's going off, and it's like it's got the countdown, and then it's like ding 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 ding. It's so good. I'm sorry, I don't know if you know what I mean.
I think I know that song, and that's one of the ones that too. There's a few there's a few songs that I will, like I said, there's a few songs that I like off the Half-Life soundtrack. Well, I love the soundtrack, but there's a few of them that I will actually listen to on its own. Yeah, I did put that one in, I think, already.
Did?
There we go. I put it in now, just to make sure.
Yes. Commanding the Fury, thank you, Ranger Cadron. Thank you. Yes, Commanding the Fury is one of my favourite ones. I think that is actually the one I kept playing. I kept fighting longer because it was so good. It had those. There are so many good ones, and they've got all the different vocals, and I love the kind of scratchy vocals, quite vicious, and there's it really reflects the way that Geralt of Rivia fights, and that is so. It's so good. Sorry, and I think with the Halo soundtrack. Sorry, going back, they're going for they're almost taking the idea of sci-fi opera, a space opera, quite literally.
Yeah.
And I think I can see why you don't find it like that. Actually, personally, I think it suits to me that I any vocals that are done well, like the Mines of Moria, always draw me in. I dream of a survival game set in the Mines of Moria and having that kind of like male like the bass like having those male dwarfish
it's like
voices.
almost like vocal rhythm in a sense. It's almost like drum beats with a voice.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man.
But yeah, and like I kind of talked about at the beginning of this episode, it's gonna be a lot of this is going to be like the Halo thing. Me personally, I just personally don't think it matches the gameplay. As we're with something with Half-Life, I think that Half-Life's music really does match the gameplay really well, and it goes so good together when the music kicks in for a certain sequence, and it's it fits. But a lot of the music in Half-Life, there are some of the songs, like I said, exceptions that I actually do listen to outside of the game. But the majority of the soundtrack for the Half-Life games, I wouldn't just sit down and listen to, because like they're not, to me, like it's the kind of music that it's almost unsettling. Especially a lot of the more the kind of like not fast paced, but the kind of more ambient music that is in Half-Life, specifically Half-Life 2, really. It's very unsettling and really kind of almost creepy and disturbing.
The Ravenholm one. And
it fits so well, and I love it because it fits the game.
And it's sweet. It has that. It represents the feelings.
Yes. And the other one I think about is I believe there's this one track that starts during the opening sequence of Half-Life 2, where you're walking around the city and like when you're going through the abandoned playground and stuff like that. There's that kind of like that, and it's very subtle music, and it's almost really kind of not really music almost.
Yes.
But
do you hear the little girls laughing?
Yeah.
There's a sound of the
yeah.
Oh, don't! It makes me shiver right now. Have you been watching the Legend of the Grimrock series at all?
No, I haven't. I'm behind on a lot of that stuff, so I do apologize for that.
They've really not been pulling on the ambience, and in the last bit, they've started putting on the ambience. The last bits that I've been playing, and it's the fact that it's been so quiet up until now. I suddenly just, it really took me, and it really took me. It just shocked me, and it was the same with Portal. You know how it was empty with music, and I find the music when you go on Chamber 16 and you take out the boxes from the side, and then you crawl into the vent, and you find all the stuff there from Left Behind, and it just freaks me out. Really, I really find that. I do it every time because it always gives me a sense of immersion, and it just really pulls me into the moment. Sorry, I think I need to blow my nose, and I don't know if I have tissue.
All right. And
sorry.
hold on. I'm trying to find one.
Hang on, give me a moment. I'm going to be right back and find one. But do keep it up and
all right.
Tell the audience of your favorite soundtracks, and then keep me guessing when I come back.
Alrighty. So, one of my favorite soundtracks for a game, and fair warning, the game is certainly not for everyone, but it's the Serious Sam games, and warning, they are incredibly gory and over-the-top ridiculousness. However, they actually do, all the games have a setting where you can turn off the gore, so it's actually, it's a mindless shooter. And it's really great fun to be played cooperatively, because you can play with up to like 16 people or even 24 people. I mean, you can play with a ridiculous number of people co-op, and it's just a run and gun game. And that's one of the games where the music just fits it so well, because it has like the fast-paced, adrenaline pumping kind of music to get you, pumped up. And the music is not anything like, it's not gorgeous, music, but it just fits the game so well. And there's one specific one, though, that one standout track on the soundtrack, and it's in, and this is one of the cool things that's so cool, it's been in, I think, almost every installment of the Serious Sam franchise. And
he said it. I was listening, and I was thinking, oh my god, I'm not going to be able to work this out, and I wouldn't have done. Carry on. Sorry, carry on.
And it's the Serious Sam, and it's Dunes, and it was in the original Serious Sam, the first encounter, and there's this one level, and it's kind of like, it's like a decent ways into the game, and it's like the first level that when the music kicks on, the music like just accents what's happening in the game perfectly, and it's like the first, because like I'm trying to describe, but the music up until that point was a lot more subtle and wasn't as honestly, it wasn't as good, but I think it was downplayed intentionally, because when you get to this one level, which it's like the first the first time you have this massive open sprawling desert with sand dunes, and the map is massive, and there's probably over 100 enemies like swarming at you at a time, and it's just that massive thing. And then the song kicks in, and it's and I get goosebumps. And I've just recently been playing through the latest game, and it's a couple years old now, but Serious Sam 3. And I just got to a few weeks ago, got to the level where they had the revised theme. They had the same theme come back, and it was in the same similar situation where as soon as that song kicked in, I recognized it immediately, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be good, and I knew it was gonna be good. And I'm gonna be posting it. There's this one really good that's okay. So go ahead, Peter, and take it over while I'm trying to find this.
We just had a message a comment on the chat from Ranger Kurgerin. I've got to be honest. Who are you? I might recognise you if you post. If you're a Warband player, I might know you. But I don't recognise the name. But thank you very much. Grand of you to say grand and to recognise the Dark Souls series. Shout out for Dark Souls, because that is one of my favourite games of all time. Alongside all the others, as many people know. And the music is so important for Dark Souls, and I think more so than people give it credit for, because it only plays during the boss fights and one area, and it shows the meaningfulness of the music by not having music in it. And it's like what someone else described within movies, when they have music throughout the whole movie, and then there's like one fight scene where there will be two men brawling and scrabbling and scraping at each other's eyes, trying to really gouge them out. And the silence makes it so more brutal when the only sound you're hearing is the scraping of nails down someone's skin, And Dark Souls accentuates this. You get to this point, and when music comes on, it makes the boss fights worth it, because. And this I didn't feel about Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 2 really didn't have the music that stood out. The music that actually... Gadrick! Oh! You saved me. There we go. Thank you, buddy. Dark Souls really stands out when the music plays, and Dark Souls 2, the music was not stand out. The Ruined Sentinels, actually, is it's a very good theme, and I like that. When I was playing it, I realised just how good that was, but that's the only one. And the shame is it's the same composer, which makes you wonder what changed when you've got the things like the Artorias theme and Sif's theme, and hell, even the bosses that were really minimal. There was so much effort put into the music that made the fights worth it. Oh man, I'm just reading Commanding the Fury again, and I just want to listen to it right now. Yeah, so it's an amazing thing, and I think people underappreciate music in video games, and I keep talking about this. People are like, oh, The Witcher 3 is so amazing, it's got amazing gameplay, and it's got amazing story and amazing characters, and I say, play that without the music and see what you think. If it was silent, if there was no music, they keep forgetting to put the music in, like, oh, it's an amazing this, amazing that, and to say The Witcher 3's music isn't that good, I think is denying a very, very amazing thing. I couldn't understand if you didn't, because the instruments are all so natural. There's a lot of yes. Hello, Bobo. Fantastic. Nice to see you here. Lord of... Oh, don't get me started. So much to talk about when it comes to music and video games. Lord of Cinder. Gosh. 30-second delay. So... Lord of Cinder, I don't want to give too many spoilers because it provides a really incredible moment of sound, and I'm not going to say anything more because it's important to the story, I suppose. So, but it's just piano, and it's amazing. It's such a shock after all these giant. I know I said I wouldn't talk about it, but I'm not going to talk about the fight. You know, the music. It's such a shock because you've had this really heavy music that's really had such a orchestra, and then it's just a piano. And it makes you start reflecting on every single thing you've done, and not many things can say that.
I think the closest thing I know, because having not played the Dark Souls games, I think the Halo soundtrack actually does the same thing with the One Final Effort, where it starts off with the piano, and it's the da da da. And I actually think the theme is actually in Halo 2 as well, but it's and it's actually at the end of Halo 2. It's the One Final Run or whatever. I think it's the last mission of Halo 2. And it starts out with I've never played the games either, but
yes,
I've played some. But
Halo Reach, and Halo 1 are the ones that I've been playing. Halo 1 and Halo Reach are the ones that I played, and Hello, Peter and chat. Hello, and Darin, Captain Skez HD is online. Hello there, buddy. Nice to see you. Where was I? I am completely lost. In my head. Halo, yes, Halo Reach had a fantastic soundtrack, and I think that's one of the things that really drew me into that one, because I'd never played Halo before, and a lot of people blame that one. They say, oh, it wasn't that great, and I don't know, I felt, yeah, sure that there are a lot of shallow characters, but I felt the music was so good. If you play that game and focus on the music, I think you'd be surprised. The ending music right at the end is fantastic. The soundtrack is something else, actually, and I have played the other Halos, and I still like Reach's most. So if you focus on the soundtrack and listen to it alone, I think you'll be surprised. It's just marvelous.
I'm actually. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I even bought it years and years ago when I first played it, because I don't often buy soundtracks, but if I do buy a CD, it's probably going to be a soundtrack, because I'm just into that kind of thing. I'm sad like that.
I have a ton of soundtracks. So.
Go on, it's a guilty pleasure. Admit it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only one band I really listen to in general. I like all sorts of music, but I don't get kind of avidly into something.
I'm the exact same way. Listen to a lot of different genres, and I'll listen to a lot of different bands, but there's very rarely, in fact, there's never been a time where there's been like one band that I'll listen to all their stuff. You know, most bands that I know a kind of broad spectrum of their work, and I don't know that much about, or don't even know a lot of their music. But
actually, I suppose two bands, Dire Straits are one of them, and what's the other one? Rise Against. Have you heard Rise Against?
No. I've heard Dire Straits, of course, but I haven't.
Yeah. Rise Against. I love them. You know, I have no interest in punk rock, and it's a punk rock band. And you know what? I don't think it doesn't sound like it. A lot of their songs are quite soulful and slow, and just like a guitar playing. I really, really like Rise Against, and I'll have my months of listening to Rise Against, and they play into my video game soundtrack sometimes, you know, like the way you do. Warband, what do you think? Go on. While we're here and both being avid Warband players, what's your verdict on the Mountain Blade Warband soundtrack?
I think that when it's good, it's very good, and the rest of the time it's very forgettable. And I honestly probably don't. I mean, I have my music turned off in Warband, but that's actually more because of I play mainly on multiplayer, and you know, competitively you don't need distractions of music, you know, when you're playing in a match or something. But when I have played single player and I've sat down and just played it, I actually do enjoy a lot of the music from it. And I've actually listened to just some. There's a few tracks here and there that I've actually just listened to on their own.
Swardian Hall. Swardian Hall.
Yes.
I can't forget Swardian Hall.
In fact, I actually have the few game soundtracks that I actually have. I'm gonna pull up here because I actually have them on my computer. So, I have Warband. I actually, I don't think I have. I mainly have the. Yeah, I don't. This is sorted terribly, so I'm not gonna be able to find anything very well. But,
yeah.
So never mind.
My computer's appallingly organised, as in really well organised. It's to go into like one folder, like to find a folder, you have to go into multiple folders, and I all know where they are, so I can't lose things. But it's so organised. And I a tip to all ye, put it in your downloads folder. Because the documents folder, everything is put to the documents folder. You know, like everything you install goes into documents folder. So I just leave that be and go and put everything on downloads.
I actually have a entirely separate folder that I have for all of my stuff too.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I just use downloads. I'm sure other people have much cleverer solutions. But we should probably go back to music in video games.
Actually, real quick, I'm going to just play on stream just the opening to the Finish the Fight from the Halo 3, which is probably my favorite song from the soundtrack. So, unfortunately, Peter, I don't know of any way to get it where you can hear it too.
Oh, I can pretend I'm listening.
Okay. Or you can actually unmute the stream, and once it gets caught up, you'll be able to hear the music for you.
Yeah, I can.
That'll work. So, I'm going to mute my microphone real quick and just play this, just a little snippet of this. The very beginning, I muted my microphone too soon.
Wow, it's amazing. I can't hear it. I am moving a lot to who asked. Oh, apparently my volume's fluctuating. I'm moving.
I'm going to be skipping ahead a little bit because it has a long intro.
Like all good songs.
Here we go. No, that's not it either. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the wrong track. No wonder I'm not finding it.
Black sheep, have you any wool? That's a good soundtrack.
One final effort. Here we go. This is it.
He's going to give it one final effort. One final effort.
Anyway, and so that's just the opening part, but I love the intro with just the piano and the drums, and then it builds up to the orchestra, and I actually love how they still have the piano throughout the entire piece, even though obviously like the orchestra, builds up and kind of takes over. And yeah, that was a very abrupt shut off there, the song.
Oh, don't worry. I mean, I couldn't hear it, so...
okay.
Actually, I might be able to now.
It should be caught up, getting close to caught up.
Oh, I'm hearing it. Oh yes, I have heard this before.
It was a very famous when the game first came out. This is also the first time that I've ever seen the music from a game actually stand out, and like a lot of people talked about this track. Separate from the game, because obviously the game when it came out was a huge deal, but also a lot of people were like, man, in this one song, and I remember there were a lot of people doing covers of the song on YouTube back when it first came out of that specific track, and it's probably still one of my favorite tracks.
It's a very coverable track, I can tell you.
Yeah, and it is. I don't know. I love the way that it builds up, and it just sounds really kind of epic and stuff. But again, honestly the time that it kicks in during the game, I don't think it fits the gameplay. Thematically it fits, but it doesn't fit the actual gameplay aspect of when you're playing it. Like how in Half-Life, like I think Half-Life's music fits what's going on when you're playing.
And I felt with Halo Reach, I felt actually that, I mean, maybe I'd feel with Halo 3 that it was the case, but with Halo Reach I felt they did embrace the gameplay a little more with the soundtrack. It's the same, but it's a bit more techno, I think, if I'm correct in saying. And therefore, it kind of... It does embrace the character of the gameplay. And I do agree, actually, there are some soundtracks that do stand alone, but you can tell they kind of be made afterwards. Actually, there was a really interesting video from Nerdwriter1. I talked to you about him.
And I've watched quite a few of his videos
You've watched
from yesterday.
He's so good, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's very good. And he talked about the Lord of the Rings soundtrack. And actually, you shouldn't call it the Lord of the Rings soundtrack. You should call it the Lord of the Rings score. I thought I'm usually accidentally overpowering people.
Okay, is that better, Gadrick? I was worried about that because I can see the audio levels right in front of me, and it looked like mine was a bit long. So is this better, or should I hear? Actually, I turned it down more.
Maybe you should turn it up because it's nice to not be the one interrupting all the time.
There we go.
I'm terrible.
No, we're both bad about that, I guess.
It's a male thing. Where was I? Nerdwriter1, Lord of the Rings score, because a score is... now, I've never really differentiated them, but now he said in his video, and I've learned something new, and you learn something new every day, you see. A score is specifically written for the movie or the book, and a soundtrack is something that's put over the top of this. Apparently I need to be slightly louder now, so perhaps raise my volume a bit as well.
Okay, I have your volume raised as much as I can. Actually, here, I can raise it in TeamSpeak.
It is semi my fault because I'm reclined in my spinning
that's fine.
chair.
There we go. I turned you up. I turned you up on TeamSpeak, so that should fix it.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Yeah, I'm kind of just reclined back.
I'm doing
away
the same.
From my microphone, so there's not much. That's already better, Ranger. Gadrick. God, it's gonna confuse me when people have different names.
Gadrick.
CCC Richard, I'm looking at you. He's got different names for almost every account he uses, so I always forget. And poor Phoenix, you know, Doff Phoenix. He didn't have a different name, and I could. There are so many people I have on Steam, and I forgot. I was like, "What clan are you from?" And he was just like, "Excuse me." I was like, I don't know. But yeah, I think immersion with music. Have you ever played a horror game without the sound on?
I haven't played many horror games at all, actually. So
I quite enjoy horror games because I'm rubbish at them.
I'm planning to be. Later down the road. I'm planning on getting a few horror games and playing them on my stream, actually, to play, because I've played very few horror games, and I've never played a horror game that I found scary. So I want people to give recommendations of like the scariest horror games, and I'm gonna play them and see if
apparently
they can scare me.
Penumbra Black Plague's quite good.
Okay.
Penumbra Overture, I've jumped a lot and screamed. Thanks, Guy. Thanks, Mr. Gaming. Don't feel sorry for Phoenix. We've been told by Gadrick. Oh, bless him. I do. I'm a sensitive guy, you see. The the horror games, I don't often find them that scary, but well, actually, no, sorry, I lie. Horror games I do find terrifying, and horror movies is what I mean. I don't find scary at all. They just... It's about the immersion, and it's about the music, and it's about being the person being chased by the deadly monster, as opposed to watching a guy being chased by a deadly monster. I know people who can play video games and can't watch movies. Horror. And that confuses me. Why are you more scared by watching someone else be scared than being the one actually being scared?
Yeah.
But it's just, the things like Amnesia and Penumbra where you're the one opening that door. You know there's something behind it, but you've got to be the one. But if you play with the sound off, it's terrifying. No, it's sorry. Oh God, my
it's
brain.
It's not terror. It's not. It loses the terror because you can't hear the sound cues and stuff.
We talked about this yesterday. We talked about this yesterday, Darin. we spoke for 2 hours yesterday before we did our recording for Tuesday's episode of Portal 2. Ah, thank you. Brilliant. Hello, Naran. Sorry, I don't know all these YouTube names. You see, they're all different. Yeah, we don't have a set time for the stream, so actually we could go on for ages. But we were talking about how I accidentally always say the opposite of what I mean. Just Freudian slips, you see. Now, when you play it without the music, suddenly it's not terrifying at all. You notice that actually you couldn't care less about the fact that there's a demon dog chasing you. And then even, like, the moment you put the headphones on, and you hear the growl, and you hear the do, you hear that creeping music, and it suddenly makes you just feel really uncomfortable, and it gives you this, I can't do it. I can't. And that's why I'm playing them, because I want to get through so many horror games. I really do. I absolutely love them, but I cannot play them alone because I don't have the... I just worried about engagement, and I can't stay engaged that long when I'm like, oh my God.
I have the problem with horror games. We need to get back on topic, but I have a problem with horror games of I deconstruct them too much, so that I'm basically like, okay, yeah, there's gonna be a jump scare here. Okay, there wasn't one, then there's gonna be one here. Oh yes, there was the jump scare. I don't know. Well, it's just my mind automatically. I do the same thing with horror movies. Like, I actually enjoy watching horror films. Well, I enjoy watching certain kinds of horror films. Like, usually kind of the ones that are almost have a sort of dark humor to them. That are kind of a little more kind of making funny. Fun of horror. They're making fun of the horror genre. But I really like those because it's the same thing. I deconstruct them too much, so it's like when the jump scares are going to happen.
I do too. I know when they're going to happen, and I still jump, and I'm still, terrified. I sit there and I'm like, it's going to happen now. But it's like playing Warband, when you got that, like one time I couched someone, and I knew my couch was going to hit the horse, and I knew that guy was going to jump up and slice me in the face, and I still did it. I saw it coming, but I still did it. But that's just what happens. And for me, I know a lot of people who are the same, who deconstruct these horror games and are just like, well, why is it scary anymore? And I can't say why, but it just is. It's terrifying. And that's about the immersion.
I
and the
think it also ties into, with horror games especially, it ties into different things will scare different people. Like, I haven't played a horror game that has scared me, but I don't think that it's impossible. Like, I'm not saying that, I don't get scared of any horror game. I think I just haven't played one yet that would cause me to be to scare me.
The horror genre in video games, a lot of people seem to think it's done, but I think it's barely even begun. I think
there's tons of innovation that needs to be done, in my opinion, because it's stagnating.
Yeah. The most incredible thing really is the fact that the scariest video games aren't horror games, and I think if you hear me out, you'll actually understand what I mean. Dark Souls, you fear dying more than you do in a horror game. You fear the loss of things, and that's the kind of fear, and that's the one that leaves you shaking and going, oh my god, and you're fighting in a beautiful church lit by golden drapes, and yet you're more scared than you ever would be in a horror game. Same for Half-Life 2, for instance. A lot of people give huge credit to the amazing Half-Life 2 things with the Ravenholm.
Yeah, I also think Nova Prospect is actually very underrated for having some good kind of creepy atmosphere to it.
Great atmosphere in Nova Prospect.
And it's not as obvious, because Ravenholm was like very much a nod to like Silent Hill and stuff like that, like those kind of very horror. It was very, like the very scary town that's like abandoned, very much kind of like a lot of the Silent Hill stuff. And then, but Nova Prospect, so I mean, I want to finish that thought. Ravenholm is very obvious in that, like, this is going to be creepy and scary, versus Nova Prospect is a lot more, it's not
very lonely.
Yes, and it's very much more of, like, it's scary for different reasons. It's not scary because it's a horror set, or a set piece, like a horror set piece. It's scary because of the things that happen there, and of once you're in Nova Prospect, of the, like you said, it's very lonely, and the abandonedness of it, because it's like once you attack Nova Prospect, basically it's like there's certain parts where there's no one there because like things have been going wrong.
I like sand traps for that reason, actually.
Yeah,
the scene when you're assaulting Nova Prospect through sand traps, and because you've got these antlions and they're your only friend at the time, there is a sense of loneliness, actually, and you're kind of crossing the sands. I like the bit when you're going by the coast and you've got the beach and there are a couple of turret men and you've just got to hold off this whole thing and push forward, and you are alone, apart from these ants that were trying to kill you not long before. And I think this is what Half-Life does so well, is that it's able to present something so ridiculous in a manner that makes you completely believe it.
Yeah,
and actually the developers spoke about this. I think, the developers spoke about this, didn't they?
There's actually a really awesome video that I can't remember who it's by, because I've recently gone on a kick of I've rewatched and have found some new videos talking about Half-Life and like kind of as a game in the Half-Life series, but I don't remember which one it was, but one of them mentioned how the thing that Half-Life does so well is that, and they were talking like obviously Half-Life 1 kind of started it, so they focused on that, and it's really the whole thing of Half-Life presents this absurd scenario of a physicist being able to fight an invading alien army and the U.S. Marines by himself, pretty much, entirely basically by himself, and like the whole thing of like the science behind Half-Life, it's completely invented. There's no such thing as a resonance cascade or any but it draws you in and it makes you believe it, because it has the air of like authority and believability, even though it's complete nonsense. And like when you step back and look at it, it's like, this is absurd, but Valve did an amazing job of making the absurd believable, and they made the absurd not seem absurd. And I really wish I could remember the video that the guy mentioned, because I do want to.
Yes, I think I may have watched the same one.
I think we probably have.
Somewhere in the archives. There was another video, Jack Frags.
Oh yes, his video was really good. He
just recently did a video on why Half-Life was so good. I've never seen Jack Frags before.
I hadn't. I found him off of that video as well, and I actually really like his Counter-Strike because I play Counter-Strike. I play CS:GO a decent amount, so I actually watched some of his videos for that.
When did you start playing that?
I've started playing CS:GO last year is when I really started playing it online, and I basically decided, like, you know what, I actually want to. I'd seen a few videos of people playing it competitively, in competitive matches, and I'm like, you know what, I kind of want to like get into this. Obviously, I'm not looking to actually be competitive.
Funnily enough, quite a few Warband players are competitive.
Yeah, that's. I think there's a
fair bunch, actually a surprisingly big bunch.
I think there's a decent amount of crossover between the different. Obviously, not the gameplay itself is completely different, and like individual skill wise, it's going to be completely different. But I think
you're an archer, of course.
But I think in terms of the tactics and the strategy and the kind of the teamwork that is in Mountain Blade Warband, I think a lot of that is very similar to how the kind of teamwork that you need for Counter-Strike. I think there's a lot of crossover in terms of how the kind of teamwork plays out.
Counter-Strike doesn't have music in the game, does it?
No, they have.
For multiplayer.
No, they don't. That's obviously, again, that's for the same reason why I turned mine off for Warband.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know Warband, actually, I love all the soundtrack. I've got to be honest, that all the soundtrack I think is good. I think it's better than people say it is. It's quite clunky because it's that style, but it's... but yeah, I've turned it off online because you hear it so much. But Counter-Strike, I mean, a lot of multiplayer games don't have music.
Actually, you mentioned something that I want to talk about. Is you said that it gets repetitive, and music, a game soundtrack creating burnout.
Yes.
Of that you're sick and tired of listening to the music. I find that this is very prevalent in a lot of open world games like Skyrim.
Yes.
Skyrim's music is pretty. I actually think Skyrim's music is Oblivion's music. I actually prefer Oblivion's music to Skyrim's across the board.
But ambient music, Skyrim does very well. And I think they're almost on par with Oblivion. But yes, Oblivion does.
And actually, I wanted to mention, this is one of the ones I had in my notes. Jeremy Soule, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, is the guy who did. Actually, I know he did the music. He did the music for Oblivion. He's credited on the Wikipedia as the Elder Scrolls, so he might have done Skyrim as well. But I know for a fact he did Oblivion.
He did Morrowind as well.
Okay, and then he also has done music for Guild Wars, which also Guild Wars actually has some very good music. I've never played any of the games.
I think he did the one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. Soundtrack. Wait, let me just find it. I want to know if no, it's not him. The guy who did the Assassin's Creed soundtrack is a similar name, Jesper. It's the J made me think of him.
But he also did music for Total Annihilation, Neverwinter Nights, which Neverwinter Nights is an amazing game. It's probably my favorite RPG. In terms, not counting like action RPGs or anything, it's like my favorite like traditional more RPG. Dungeon Siege and the Harry Potter games, I believe. He did the music for them as well. So he has a very long.
Does he?
I'm pretty sure.
The Harry Potter games, like the first 3 Harry Potter games, are like the best Harry Potter. They're like the best video games.
But on the subject of. On the subject of soundtrack burnout, I actually think, again, going back to Half-Life, because we are Half-Life fanboys, so you're gonna have to deal with that. I will probably find a way to talk about Half-Life in every one of these podcast episodes. So
it's an all-around good game.
Yeah, it's just I absolutely love it. But anyway, I think they do a really good job of the soundtrack is very minimalist. So there's certain sequences in the game where there is no music, and when the music does play, it doesn't just loop. It plays and then it finishes it, and then it kind of just leaves you to finish playing the game. And I think they do a pretty good job of usually they're able to pace the music out.
Yes.
They
put it at certain moments.
And they pace it out too, where most of the tracks will finish around the time usually that you're gonna be unless you're like the first time you're playing through the game, it paces itself really well. Now, obviously, once you've played the game a lot, as much as you and I have, like, you can run through the game a lot faster, and you can beat certain sections fast. So you kind of outpace the music in some areas, but that's to be expected as you get play a game faster. But I think for that initial playthrough, they do a really good job with that. And
have you noticed? I only worked it out recently that a lot of the soundtrack is copied in Half-Life 2. A lot of the soundtrack is replayed from Half-Life 1.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you want to check it out, and they're renamed. It's a bit cheeky of them. But there are some original ones in Half-Life 2. But funnily enough, a lot of the best ones are the ones repeated in Half-Life 1. My favourite of all the Half-Life soundtracks is called... It's called Ad Practicum. It's the most it's the one that happens on the bridge, on that episode. I think it's episode
that one.
14, and I say silent the whole time.
Yeah.
That moment is the most... I play that sometimes ambiently, and I want that on my channel. I want that ambient sound, and I want it because it's so amazing, just mind-blowing.
One of the game. Now, I kind of wanted to mention again the game music in video games getting repetitive, and obviously Mountain Blade has this problem because, and I think again, open world games
constantly.
Open world games have this problem where there's only so much music that they can make realistically for the game, and you're going to put in, usually the idea with open world games is that you put a lot of hours in so that eventually you're going to get bored with the soundtrack. Even if you like the soundtrack, like for me with Skyrim, and I actually didn't put in a ton of hours into Skyrim, but I got to the point where I only had played it for like 20 hours, and I'm already tired of like the battle music.
I've never completed Skyrim.
It's so, and I haven't gotten close to completing it.
I was so for the first time it came out, and I played it, and I got really into it until I got to level 40, and I was so into it that I was like, I'm going to 100% this game, and then suddenly I woke up the next morning. I was talking to a friend about this. I woke up the next morning, and the friend's watching, so shout out to you, buddy, you're the best. So I woke up the next morning and suddenly was like, oh my god, you're just following the marker. and I was just like, wow. Okay, and I never picked it up. I have not picked it up to this day from that obsessive level 40 I got to, and I aim to. It's something I want to do when VR comes out, because it looks like it's going to be such a good game for VR.
And obviously we'll probably should do an episode dedicated to VR, because also VR is going to be amazing for horror games.
Oh yes, will it? Just a bit. I think though hopefully it won't burn out like that.
Yeah, hopefully. I think I honestly think good VR is going to come down to clever game design, and I think I don't think VR is going to ever become completely mainstream. I think it'll become fairly mainstream, but I think there will always be, I think the good games there will be good non-VR games and good VR games, because I think there's some degree
it's expensive
you have and you have to design in order to have it be good. I think from what I've seen, the good games that do VR are ones that were designed and are more or less VR only. Like they are designed for VR.
And this is the problem with VR, and this is, I think, why a lot of people are worried about it, because it's only good for VR, and VR
that makes
is expensive, and not everyone.
Yeah, it's not a good business model from a game development standpoint of developing for VR
at all. And when the thing is because they're so expensive to make, because you've got to invest in all the different technologies. In the end, you're going to have to put the game price up, which means that everything is more expensive.
I do think that the hope that VR has is that it will become a sort of like that if it gets to the point where VR can kind of almost be like a console, where it's like it's a lot more common to have one in the house. and and it would fit very well with the idea of consoles of that it's in your living space.
Idea,
specifically VR. I'm talking the Vive from Valve because I think that is the best one I've seen so far. And again,
a lot of people are agreeing. I went to Portsmouth University to talk about video games technology, and the guy actually cancelled his Oculus Rift pre-order. Being a video game developer, he cancelled his Rift pre-order and bought a Vive. And I think we should probably this is a whole topic we could go on for hours about. To move on to another one, music burnout. I'm going to confess to my music burnout. It's The Witcher 3.
Ooh.
And you know how much I love that soundtrack. I only burnt out to one song, and I still love that song to bits. But
when you're playing the game and you hear it, you're like, ah.
Oh, yes. I played the game for the moment it came out. Well, actually, no, I had it 3 weeks after it came out, and I got it free with my new GPU. That's kind of one of the reasons I bought my GPU. Because The Witcher 3 and Batman Arkham Knight came for it free, but Batman Arkham Knight I haven't played yet because of the bugs and stuff. But anyway, the burnout happened with Hunter's Path, which is an absolutely fantastic ambient track. It's quite repetitive. Actually, the Skellige ambient tracks as well are my favourite, actually, of almost any game. An ambient track, that's my favourite. And I totally burnt out from it. I had had enough. I was actually sick. I was feeling ill from hearing this song again. And the reason is because I didn't fast travel that entire game, and you know how big that game is. The game took me 18 days and 21 hours of game time to complete. Playing it, and it was so long that it became this wasn't in one go, this was in lots of weeks this took me.
No, you sat down and played it 18 days straight.
but like, I was putting quite a few. I don't usually do that, but I did just put quite a few hours in every day because it was so immersive. It was so immersive. The Witcher 3 soundtrack was unbelievable, and it drew me in immediately. But not fast traveling. By the end of the game, when you're just finishing off everything, and you hear the do 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 do, and I'm just like, I know it off by heart, and I was just like, oh, it just makes me feel ill, but I didn't want to turn it off because the fight music's good. But actually, I didn't like the Skellige fight music. That's the one thing I did like it, but I don't like it in the game particularly. It's too loud. It's too boisterous.
Yes, Gadget. Peter plays hardcore.
Yeah, no fast travel. Yeah, I don't. It was hardcore. It was seriously hardcore, and it was hard because it was actually quite exhausting at times, and I was tempted so much to fast travel.
That's actually. I just thought of another topic we need to do for an episode. The idea of, like, for you not playing with fast travel actually, in one way, added to the experience of.
It did. It made.
Because it adds to the story aspect of, like, it makes you feel more invested in the world and stuff. Because, like,
but
if you can't fast travel, because it's probably the thing is it feels more like a journey.
It did. It felt like my life. Yeah. I can't tell you. Like, I felt so empty after it because I had just done it, and the worst part is actually it made the ending rubbish. It it ruined the ending. I cannot tell you because the game was so long. Wait, hang on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I accidentally clicked something on this thing, and it was on my. I've got a little headset connection cable thing. Thank you, Gadrick. Yeah, it was. It was very. It was quite a moving experience actually because it was just so constant, and you felt so invested in the world, as you say, and you were there. I can tell you, but. When the ending came, the ending took 15 minutes to complete, and I have to admit, it had come to the point where I was occasionally just messaging people off the cuff. Oh yeah, no man, I recognise your name, buddy. Don't worry, Christopher. Nice to see you there. Man, gave you a shout out, and you'll see that shout out in a minute. The ending took about 15 minutes to complete.
Oh, that's got to be a letdown.
Oh god, was it a letdown? I can't tell you. I didn't even know the game was ending, and I was busy texting, not texting, messaging Conrad the Groper, who's a great friend. I was busy messaging him because I was like, oh, cool. And then we were talking about something, and then suddenly I just looked at what was happening, and it was all like, oh, you know, the big villain had come, and I was like, wait, why is he? Oh my god, wait. I had to type to him, and I said, I think the game is ending. I had to close the tab and start playing, and I felt so out of it because, I mean, why did it happen so quickly? And there were like 2 boss fights that were a bit lame, and I just kind of breezed through it, and I was like, oh.
You know what that reminds me of?
What?
Half-Life, the original Half-Life, because that's something that
ended.
Yeah, because, well, not the ending. I don't think it was necessarily, but a lot of people always complain about the boss fight for the original Half-Life.
Yeah.
And I actually have to say, while it is one of those things that, like, I will kind of defend it a little bit because it's like I love the game so much.
It's really confusing.
And I've played, and the more you play because one of the things is people complain about that the boss fight was confusing. It was difficult, but it wasn't really difficult. It was just convoluted that made it difficult.
Yeah, yes.
And that's what I hate about boss fight. But I will concede the point that as much as I love the game, the boss fight does kind of
boss fights in non-boss games suck. I'm sorry,
yes.
That's a conversation we can have.
Yeah.
Ratchet and Clank has so many bad boss fights, and then luckily they've had 1 or 2 good ones now. But why they had boss fights, I don't know. I actually thought I loathed bosses, and my favourite game is Dark Souls.
Yeah, I think
for years I was like, bosses are like the stupidest mechanic. Why do people have them?
That's why I think that Half-Life Episode 1 and 2 did it really well. They didn't have a boss fight, but they had that kind of climactic. They had a replacement for a boss fight. Yeah, they had a boss fight kind of sequence, but it wasn't actually a boss fight. And
Episode 2
did that really well.
Nailed it. Actually, a lot of people agree on that. Episode 2 was unbelievable.
The defense of the White Forest.
Yeah. I have to say that was something I was absolutely. I know I didn't even get close to that, but I was actually pretty confident Half-Life 2 I could beat in a Freeman mode, and you could see that my main worry was the train and the very ending of the game.
Instant death places are the worst. I can tell you that because I've been doing Half-Life Iron Man mode. The instant death sequences are the worst.
For Half-Life 2, I think Half-Life 1 is so cruel. The instant deaths in that game are ridiculous. There are too many too soon.
Though to be fair, I don't have a problem with it when you look at it playing the game normally. But when you're trying to do it in one life, it is ridiculous. But I would say normally it doesn't really bother me. But
I'm a big one for having games possible to beat in one run, and I will be doing a Witcher Geralt mode, and it will probably have no fast travel as well. I think that'll
be an experience.
It will be an experience. I want to experience that again, and I'm going to wait till the new DLC's out because there's no after-game content. I know the New Game Plus came out, and I love New Game Plus, but it was too late. And the same happened for Deus Ex Human Revolution. I absolutely stuck to that game. I was unbelievably hooked. A bit like Witcher, but it was a quicker game. Oh, sorry. You should come and visit sometime, man. I mean, I'd love you to, but when I can afford to. Probably next year. I'll be in university. So.
All right, I'll be right back. So you continue with what you were saying, and I'll be right back.
Can you remind me what I was saying?
Why'd you put me on the spot?
I was talking about The Witcher 3.
Yeah, Deus Ex Human Revolution, the New Game Plus.
Deus Ex Human Revolution, the New Game Plus. Yeah, I was saying about the New Game Plus, and it was. Here we go. What should we say? Can we say anything about Darin? What should we talk about? He has lovely hair. His cheekbones are perfect, and his eyebrows are really dapper. I don't know if you noticed. And I don't know. I'm lost because I've lost. Deus Ex Human Revolution. I haven't even seen Darin. I've got to be honest. I don't think he's seen me either. I haven't got anywhere that I've actually got a picture online. I don't think. No. Sorry, guys. You can't see me yet. I hope to actually do something on YouTube with visual But I want new glasses first. Yep, wear glasses. There you go. There's a picture. Yeah. Deus Ex Human Revolution. The end game came so quickly, and when it did, you didn't have the new game plus at first, and you couldn't keep your augmentations when you replayed, and that just put me completely off. He has a lovely bald spot. Fantastic. Gadrick, love it. Actually, I have a bald spot as well. Hello, Darin. Are you here?
Yes.
You are back. I was saying about the end game, and there's gosh darn it. Deus Ex Human Revolution, it ends with New Game Plus. It didn't end with a New Game Plus at first, and because it came too late and you couldn't keep all the augmentations that you worked really hard to build upon, and then it got to this point where they actually released a New Game Plus, and it was too late. I had no interest anymore. Like, I'd completed my journey, and that was it. And Witcher 3 came like that as well. The ending was so off-putting. I'd spent 3 games building up to that, and it ended in 15 minutes. And the middle sequence of that game took an hour and a half.
Yeah, I don't know. Those are some very interesting things where I think that comes down to
game endings. That's pacing. Something we could talk about.
Game endings we could talk about.
Boss fights.
Add it to the list.
Add that to the list.
We're not short on topics for episodes. That's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, trying to bring it back to music. One of the games that this is probably a little bit of explanation. So, the Total War game series, I've been playing. I started playing with Rome Total War, and I've played all the way up through Rome 2.
Rome Total War 1 has beautiful music.
It does. It has really good music. But my favorite soundtrack is Medieval 2. And it is, well, first off, I actually have the disc copy of I got the collector's edition copy, and so it comes with, it's a really awesome collector's edition. It comes with the map, a physical map of the campaign map of the game, like a map of Europe. It's really cool. It also comes with and it comes with the soundtrack and all that stuff and the behind the scenes, and it's a really, really good box set. But the soundtrack, I love the soundtrack to the game, and it's my favorite Total War soundtrack, and there has not been a very good, it was to me the pinnacle. Rome had a good one, but Medieval 2 is the pinnacle, and they went downhill from there. And a big reason for this, of why I think this, is that the music in Medieval 2 had a lot of variance in that it was they changed. It had a honestly, I think it probably comes down to it has a larger soundtrack. There's a lot more songs that play during when you're on the over campaign for the ambient music. Same with the battle music. There's a lot more different tracks of battle music, and I think it varies it up enough to where you don't get burned out nearly as much on from playing battles over and over again. And in Empire Total War, as much as I really like Empire Total War, I hate the soundtrack. I cannot play it with music. I have my own soundtrack because the soundtrack is fine, but it has like 2 campaign ambient songs, and then and then the battle music all sounds exactly the same. Like, I know it has a couple different tracks, but they all basically sound the same, and it's just like, it's so. And I think the biggest thing is that it's harder to do good music for a game set during that time period. Because you either would have to, and actually, I have to say, there's a mod it's the Empire Darth mod, and it's amazing. I highly recommend it. And I'm actually going to start doing a series on this channel, a Let's Play series of that mod for Empire, and it completely changes the music, and the ambient music for the campaign is period music. It's a lot of piano and like chamber music and stuff like that, and it fits so much better. And then for the battle music, they obviously, because it's a mod, they can do this. They took soundtracks of Last of the Mohicans. For the naval battles, they have Master and Commander. And so they have music that was composed for films that were set during that era, and it fits. It fits better than the game's own music does, because the game music is very generic, and you could throw it into any setting and it doesn't sound specific.
My brother used to play that a lot, and he used to play it with the sound on loudspeakers, so I would always hear the same pieces, I've got to be honest. I always thought it was good, but yeah, I did hear a lot of the same things, so perhaps, that's kind of...
And for me, Medieval 2 music, it sounds like it fits with the medieval setting. It has a lot of chants, it has a lot of medieval style, like Benedictine chants. It has a lot of it's not authentic because they don't use medieval specific instruments for the music, but it has that sound that it just sounds like it fits with the Middle Ages. And and I think that's what Empire, Total War, and what any of the Total Wars after that are lacking. The one that I'm not as adamant on in terms of saying that it has to have a bad soundtrack is Shogun 2. That's mainly because I don't know very much about Japanese history as much. I know some, but I'm not as interested in Japanese history. So Shogun 2 was never, even though I still think it's a pretty fun game. I never was as into it because wasn't as into the era and the place that it took place in. I only even played Rome. I'm gonna be honest. I'm really bad at strategy games, and I don't know why. It's something. I think I love strategy in games where you're kind of playing as yourself, because you can plan your movement. You can, and I love that kind of strategy. Playing Crisis, for instance, I'd always plan a route around the map and then calculate the next route, and then I would just follow that path. And I'd just keep to that path, and I would kill anyone on my way, or whatever happens. And I would know all the routes to confuse. In TF2, there's a couple of capture the flag maps, and I've never been beaten on my route because I've planned this one route on one map, which is just always confuses every player I'm against because it's so roundabout. And it just happens. But on a strategy game, you've got to kind of pinpoint where everyone is, and you've got to be in control of everyone. It is very much because it requires a lot of micromanaging of units, and I can definitely I definitely feel that. But I would actually recommend have you ever played turn-based strategy games, or tactical kind of like XCOM but not necessarily XCOM?
They're good. I can see they're so good, but they're so slow. I found Pokemon hard enough. That is an issue. I remember playing Final Fantasy, and I really loved it actually, but losing a fight was just made you want to throw your head against the wall. You were like, no, I'd rather punch a wall than play this game again.
I think that's a problem with a lot of turn-based games, is that you need to be able to speed things up. You need to be able to speed through stuff as much as you can.
There's that problem of save systems. That's another conversation, isn't it? Save systems.
Save scumming.
I still think Dark Souls has the single best save system, and I don't know why no one else does it like it. It saves every 2 seconds, pretty much, and so every death counts. You can't undo anything. But the thing is because it does that, it means that when you quit, you're always exactly where you left off. And then when you die, if you quit, you're back where you left it, which is dead, and then moving on. But the point is that you can't go wrong with it. I remember a Final Fantasy had a save point, and it was the furthest we'd ever got in the game, and then we accidentally got our character trapped on a cliff. And it saved, and we would drop off the cliff every time we reloaded the save, and we didn't have a spare save. And ever since then, we've actually had backup saves. We never used to, and ever since then, me and my brother and I, sorry, bad grammar, naughty, we always put up backup saves now. A game that deserves a lot of recognition. It's on my desk, and it's one of my favourite games of all time because I was brought up on it. The Hobbit video game. Have you ever played it?
No.
I'm so pleased with this game. It's the best. I'm playing it on Back to Old School.
Nice.
Which I think in Season 2 I'll put on Sundays, because that's a better day anyway for me, because I'm hoping to live stream it, because I want to play Zelda, because I've never played Legend of Zelda properly. Ocarina of Time. I've never gotten really past the first few bits not because it's hard, and I actually love it. I love the way it plays, but it's just I don't know. I just never gotten around to completing it, so I want to on live stream. But The Hobbit is going to be something played because this game is a beast. You need to play it. You need to buy it now. It was on 1 pence on Amazon, so that's even less than 1 cent for you.
Wow.
And it's amazing. And the soundtrack won an award, actually, in 2004 or 3. The soundtrack won an award for being one of the best video game soundtracks of the year.
Wow. Because
it's so good. And you're like, this is a game no one's heard of. No one knew there was a Hobbit video game.
I've heard of it, but
it's so good. It's very childish, but it's amazing. It's like Zelda, actually.
One of the other things. So I'm gonna just start kind of rattling off a few things for the.
I think we need to wrap it up in a minute as well. Anyway.
Yeah. So a few things I want to touch on is a couple just in terms of the soundtracks. StarCraft 2. Mm-hmm. I am overall.
Strategy games.
StarCraft 2, the soundtrack overall. I'm not it's not something I would sit down and listen to. The opening menu song for StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty, the title song is amazing. I love it so much, and it fits the game. And that's one of the things that, for me, soundtracks that fit a game are amazing. Like, they are so much better when they fit the game well. And that's one of the ones that I think nails it because it has this very kind of Western sound to it. And StarCraft 2 is very much like, it has the human faction, the Terrans in it. It's very much kind of cowboys in space. Like, it has a very Western vibe to the whole, human faction in there. So it very much, the kind of like the Western sound that the soundtrack music has just fits so well. And the opening title sequence has this kind of big orchestral, opening, like this build up, and then it kind of simmers down into like this more kind of like Western with a, not even really with a guitar, but it has this kind of very Western, like cowboy space trucker sound. That sounds really bizarre, I'm sure, if you have no idea what I'm talking about in terms of the music, but I don't know, it's hard to describe, but it fits so well with the aesthetic and the thing of the game. And the other one that is actually, this is the most recent discovery I have found, and I absolutely love it, is I recently picked up the game. I actually picked it up last year during this last winter sale, was Supreme Commander, the Supreme Commander's game, and specifically Supreme Commander. Wait, which one is it? Because it's not the main. It wasn't the first game. It was the sequel, Supreme Commander Forged Alliance.
Yes.
The opening title song for that, and let me get you a link because it's really good. It is I love the music in that game, and it's one of those ones that it just fits because it's this very kind of epic sounding. And Supreme Commander is a strategy game, but it's like a strategy game that's on a like way bigger scale than like StarCraft 2 even. It's like has the massive maps and you have giant robots. It's like, very large scale, larger than life style, and the soundtrack fits it beautifully. And it's just so, but it's I gotta find the track. So actually, and that was one question I had. Are there any more recent? Obviously, you've covered like The Witcher, but are there any other like newer games, or maybe not even newer games, but like in the last 5 years or so that
Crisis 2.
Okay.
Crisis 2 and 3 have an incredible soundtrack, actually. I'm a big... Crisis 1 has a good soundtrack, but I don't think they really got it yet. And Crisis 2 did. They hired really good artists. And it's quite intense, actually. It's quite heavy, but there's a lot of good pieces in there. And I think if I do the playthrough, which I'm able to do, if I get round to that... of course I'll get round to Crisis 2. You'll know what I mean. If you listen out for it, it's incredible. Other games, oh gosh, what Warband is way too at the forefront that I've kind of forgotten I haven't really been playing that many other games in the last few years. Ratchet and Clank, the new... Oh, actually, that's something I wanted to talk about. Ratchet and Clank, the new ones and the old ones. It's Jeremy Soule.
Yeah,
fantastic.
That doesn't... I really like his music, just on a side note. Yeah, I really like his music, actually.
Ratchet and Clank is an interesting one because the old ones had a kind of techno beat to it. They were really cool. They were really funky, and if that's a word you would ever use, but it is the best way to describe it. They were funky, and they went for that funky look. But the new ones, the ones on the PS3, went for an orchestral. And you know what? The soundtrack was really good. But I missed my childhood with the funk kind of beats to it. The silly beats that actually were really good fun. What other games? Legend of Grimrock. Only like 1 or 2 songs. The ambience is insanely good for that.
And actually, so on the Ratchet and Clank, would you say that the newer ones, that the soundtrack doesn't fit the game as well as the older ones?
No, I don't know. That's a hard one, because it is a hard one for me, because I think it's probably nostalgia value that keeps the first one.
And that is also always something to keep in mind when discussing older stuff.
Something to keep in mind.
I actually have to say, one of the things is, even though I've never played a Zelda game.
You've never played one either?
Nope.
Oh, well, I get an emulator and start playing now.
Yeah.
I think it's the best way to.
I'll probably play them at some point. But
maybe we should live stream at the same time.
One of the things though is I really like the Zelda music. In particular, I mean, the main theme, the main Zelda theme is I really like.
Oh, have you heard that? I just think it's one of the coolest feats of musical things that. If you listen to the newest one, the newest game, the newest Zelda game that was for the Wii, I haven't played it, and the soundtrack was backwards. I'm not kidding you, but it sounds so good. What's the newest Zelda game? Wait, I'm gonna have to wiki this. Zelda.
But yeah, I love the main theme, the da 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 da.
Yes.
I love that music. I love that.
They actually did it backwards. Here we go. Link's Awakening, no. Full Swords, Minish Cap, no. Full Swords, Rock to See, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, Skyward Sword. That's it, Skyward Sword. And then the theme song for Skyward Sword is the main theme of the old Zeldas, but backwards.
Oh, that's.
And you know what? It sounds so good. Zelda Skyward Sword. Trailer. Just see if this is.
That is funny, because that's usually music played backwards does not sound very good unless it's specifically designed to be able to play frontwards or backwards. But it's very hard to make for music. It's very rare for music to sound good backwards.
Exactly. Well, this is it. It must have been. It's such a good song that it must be.
Though, actually, to say that, it actually makes sense, because the theme for a lot of those older games, like Zelda and Mario and those, they actually, the music's like the basic theme, the basic tune was actually very simple. So I could definitely see where a simple tune could be easier to make sound good.
Actually, I guess it also links into the fact that I know you haven't played a Zelda game, but I have a little bit, and a lot of the mechanics are based around music. He plays the instrument, the Ocarina of Time. He plays an ocarina, and you can use, for instance, you have to play different songs to do certain things.
Right.
And there's a Song of Time, and a lot of the songs are linked in, so you can play the Song of Time.
Linked in.
You play the Song of Time, and if you do it forwards, you go forward in time, and if you play it backwards, you go back in time. But both of them sound just the same. But here we go. Yes, here we go. I'm going to link it to you, and then you can listen to afterwards. It's so good. I've got the Supreme Commander one ready, and it's so good. It's amazing. Always gets me. Well, I think we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, it's a small topic, but it's more about the because we kind of know. It's less subjective, isn't it? Like music definitely increases the immersion, and it's almost an undoubted fact.
And one thing I actually will say is that I'm curious too, because you mentioned, and again, this is probably could be tied into another topic later, or maybe we may eventually cover some of these same old topics that we do early on in the podcast. But one thing is, you mentioned Legend of Grimrock, where they didn't have really any ambience sound, music to it.
Yes,
until
silence is
partway
music
through.
as well.
And I actually think that no, this doesn't necessarily apply to games though, but I think that movies, and specifically horror movies, or not horror movies, but movies that are supposed to be scary and that actually are supposed to be genuinely, make you afraid. I find that one of my problems with them is that they have too much ambient, like the sound, like you can't tell when you're watching it, is that noise that you're hearing, is that just part, because a lot of time it's just part of the soundtrack, or is it actually something that's in the world? And it's like, you hear something like, is that just actually supposed to be there?
Too hard.
Yeah, because it's trying to build up the tension, but then it's like, but it doesn't, because, and I actually think it would be very interesting, and it would have, I mean, obviously this would be like an art film almost, but it'd be interesting to have a movie that has no soundtrack.
Yes, and
There's
I think
never
this
any music
is
to
what
it.
actually I was going to say a second ago. I think that perhaps the new judgment for whether a horror game is good is if it can scare you without any music whatsoever or any ambience. Right. Try that. Just have the sounds of the game, and if that works and scares you, then add music, and then see if it scares you more, and add the ambience, because if a game is scary enough that you're going to be frightened when there's nothing there in the background that really rattles with your mind. And I think that's about it. It's about the mind, and it's about the tone of the mind. And I'm very affected by music.
And
music
I think
changes my mood.
Music is very powerful on anyone to change stuff. Even people who don't necessarily think that music affects them. Obviously, it will affect some people more, but I think it affects everyone. And I actually think, kind of as a closing thought, since we like you said, we should probably wrap it up. I think there's actually some very very good documentary that I highly recommend. It's called I think it's called Bagpipes: Instrument of War. And one of the things that one of the guys, he's a military historian, and he talks about this. The documentary is, of course, about the bagpipes and their role throughout military history. And he actually talks about how the bagpipes, and obviously this applies to music in general, and actually that's something that a lot of people don't think about, because modern warfare is such it is, but a lot of people don't realize how much music music throughout military history is a big deal. And they had marching music, and they actually a lot of times would have music. The bands would be playing music during a battle. And they would play different songs, I think of a story that really, I think this is so awe-inspiring that, something like this could happen. But during World War I, it was during the Battle of the Somme, I believe. The British had, a lot of things, it's just kind of one of those domino effects. Everything went wrong that could for the British. And it was the first time they'd ever tried using gas. And it blew back over their own trenches because the wind shifted, and a bunch of things went wrong. The Germans were almost in control of the front trenches of the British trenches, and a bagpiper jumped up out of the trench onto the parapet and started playing the Blue Bonnets Are Over the Border, and it was the regimental march of the I think it's the borderers, the King's Own borderers, and or in this case, the King's Own borderers, and he played the march, and because they'd actually had problems with men were starting to rout. They had it almost turned into a general rout, and the bagpiper started playing the song, and it steadied the troops, and then everyone kind of rallied, and they were able to push back and actually take ground. And I just think that right there to me, and there's plenty of other examples, of music being able to do that. I think that just kind of shows the effect that the power of music on people.
Well, I think, I mean, going back to the video game kind of thing, I've been noticing a lot of games don't have music in the multiplayer, and Crisis does, and I think it's cool, but I think it almost detracts from it because it's kind of like at the end of a match it starts tensing things up by playing really fast-paced kind of tense music. It's like 10, 9, and I don't know, Crisis was always quite fast-paced, but Crisis 3 ruined it. It broke the game so much. Like, you can infinitely sprint and infinitely jump, and you can imagine when you got overpowered shotguns, people were literally running around the map, jumping, bouncing. It was a bounce fest. People would fight, and they would bounce and bounce and bounce. You would just bounce. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. And the music would make it, like, I could see everyone suddenly start going mad. You know, people were just running about like uber fast with their shotguns, firing every which way. And I was thinking, well, I don't know, actually, like, it kind of yeah, sorry. Good luck. People are beginning to disappear now. I'm getting messages. People are going to bed and things like that. Good night.
Good night to all. Finish your thought real quick, and then we'll wrap up.
And I think that actually, in some ways, it's best to just let the game play it out.
And I think that is a very thing. Games should learn when it's better to not have music, because as much as, you know, when games use music effectively, it's awesome, but like what we kind of talked about, you can get burned out on soundtracks very quickly, because if they play on loop all the time, you should use music sparingly, I think. And you know, and you really kind of like what you were saying with Dark Souls and Legend of Grimrock, where it's better to use music when you have a purpose for it, and not just it's there for the people. Because here's the thing, if people want to listen to music while they're playing the game and just, you know, they'll get their own music. I mean, I do that all the time. But a lot of times, you know, it's you know, if you have, like you're saying with The Witcher 3, you got burned out on the travel, you know, on the ambient music, because it's playing, you know, on a loop all the time.
And a more ambience, personally. I think more birdsong. I
just
think
have more
people
ambient
don't
noise.
Realize the power of birdsong. It wakes me up in the morning, and it's it just is magical. I'm very sad. I'm a very sad young man. I'm 18 and I'm thinking about the birds. You know, and it's like, games need to embrace the kind of natural things. You know, Skyrim.
Yes.
I think they needed more birdsong and those kind of things that just make you suddenly start sitting back and go, this is a medieval village, and I love it here. And Dark Souls is quite good for that, but I still think that could do with more general ambience. The game's Sorcery on a tablet. It's a tablet game, and it's a reading kind of adventure, you know, a game book.
Yeah.
And it had so much ambience, and I was hooked, absolutely. When the birds were playing, and you would enter a room, and it would read, like, you know, it'd say, like, there are men in the corner, and they're drinking beer, and there's a dog outside, and you can hear it all, you know, you hear the men are all talking, the dogs are barking, the music's playing, and people are laughing, and it's alive. And I think games forget quite often. Even Mount and Blade, they have the background sounds outside when you're in the pubs, you know, you're in the taverns, and you actually hear some things outside, and to me that brings me in. The Witcher 1 is more ambient than The Witcher 3, and I think it benefits because of it. The Witcher 1 was so ambient that every time I played it, it was one of those games that looks really bad, and you know what, it actually plays quite badly. It's very clunky, but I would be like, nah, I don't know why I'd enjoy that game. Yes, you got it on Steam. You can get it on Steam. Oh my god, I love that game. Oh wait, Sorcery. You can't get it on Steam, can you? You can get it on Steam. Wow. It's just the most amazing game.
Oh, I saw this.
Oh.
I was looking at, because I saw it on Steam, and I was like, oh, this actually looks interesting.
You've got to get it. I mean, you play it on the tablet because it plays well on the tablet if you've got one.
Well, this is one of those games that it's not going to be important how you play it as much.
Play it. And I found it's a good thing. And you put your headphones in, and you'll drift off. You disappear off into magical lands, I can tell you. The Witcher 1, and I was every time I played it, I was thinking before I played it, this is going to be a bit naff, it's going to be a bit boring, and then I play it, and the ambience kicks in, and I was there. I was Geralt, and I played it every time for at least 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It was shocking. It blew my mind, because I thought I wouldn't enjoy it every single time. And I can tell you that until the very end of the game, and I got 40 hours in to complete it, and it was only at the 35th hour that I realised I love this game. Because I'd sit down and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. It was too immersive.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it was the gameplay was bad, the voice acting was bad, the animations were stiff, the menus were bad. There was
you loved the game in spite of itself.
Super Bunny Hop is a YouTube channel who's very good. He talked about The Witchers, and he actually said himself that there was so much love put into Witcher 1, and you could feel it. It oozes from it. You know, it was like it was one of those appalling games that actually was so good. Happy birthday! Whose birthday is it?
It's not mine.
That's really strange. Yay! I guess that wraps it up, doesn't it? Ambience, more ambience, and more focused music because it's so important.
And I think we both kind of covered a lot of the music that we like from video games, and kind of covered our own listening habits.
I suppose that's more it, isn't it? You know, it's there's not much you can talk about because it's all set in stone already, and a lot of people know the effects of music. But I think it's nice to get it out there because a lot of people forget. And ambience. If I ever make a video game, which I do hope I do, ambience.
Ambience, the video game.
You sit in this room, and you think as you hear the bees buzzing. Not the bees. I don't know. I just think that ambience is so important, and not ambience in terms of like horror ambience with little sounds and
ambience of just like it should be the ambience that you hear in the real world.
Yes. You're, and this is Witcher 1. There were no bustling streets, pretty much, but you could hear it. You could hear people inside their houses talking. You could hear the dog barking from down the street. You could pretty much sense I mean this in the nicest way possible because the game was set in a kind of grimy city. You could pretty much sense the dirty prostitute around the corner. You know, it's like you know, it was, the world was so alive.
I think it's interesting that like The Witcher, the first Witcher game, you say does that better than the other two, than the two sequels, and I think Mountain Blade Warband has done that. It did that really well.
Yes, it did.
So I think it's interesting that it's
one I sit down
small.
And single player, you can sit down for 3 hours and not realize 3 hours.
Smaller games, and a lot of time, kind of the smaller, more independent game developers have to rely on ambience a lot more than AAA studios, because AAA studios can just throw stuff, throw money at it to make it better. Is the idea behind it. I think
it's all about advertising. And I think people don't realize the power of advertising.
And I think also beyond advertising, like they can make it look pretty. But this is kind of more topical, which we need to wrap up. But Far Cry Primal, I think, is a prime example, of this problem of that. Yeah, it looks pretty and it has some interesting ideas, but it's not very it's doing. And I think also another thing is that there was another game, the Mad Max game that came out last year. A lot of people describe it as it's open world game, the open world game. And I think so many developers, big AAA developers, have gotten into this open world games are a big deal and a lot of people like them, but they're losing what makes open world games fun and what makes them good. And I think, to me, Mountain Blade is I still like it better as an open world game than a lot of other, more impressive open world games. Because because you lose something when you try and over cramp the. I mean, I think the perfect example is Total Biscuit had on his Far Cry Primal video he did.
I haven't watched that yet.
He had at one point where he opened up the map and he says, "Look at this map," and it was literally covered from one edge to the other, every which way, with icons on the map of like, you can do this here, you can do that here. There's all these different nodes of things you can, and it's like, and then he talked about how the game is beautiful and the art design and everything. He says it's really cool and has some good ambience, but then they try so hard to make you forget how pretty the game is or how the environment, how cool the environments are. They try and completely nag you.
Yeah, I'll wrap up with. Let's wrap up with a final game that you're gonna give. Yeah, don't get me started on open world games though.
Yeah.
A final game where you love the soundtrack that we haven't mentioned, and I'm gonna say one game that I think the soundtrack is amazing and suits it, and it's actually a semi-open world game. And the reason open worlds haven't done so well is, I think, immersion actually. Especially Ubisoft ones, and it's a Ubisoft game I'm about to mention, Assassin's Creed 2, a near perfect game with a soundtrack that's to die for. What's your final soundtrack mention? Honorable mention?
You're putting me on the spot. I would have to say final soundtrack mention. I'm probably gonna have to go with. This is tough because you put me on the spot.
Sorry, buddy.
I'm gonna go with a very new game, still in early access actually. Ark Survival Evolved.
Yes.
It has a very limited soundtrack. It only has a few. It doesn't have very many tracks yet. Obviously, it's still in development. And I really do hope that they put some of their money that they're making off the game into making some more soundtrack, because the music they have now, I think is awesome, and I just want more of it. I want some more new tracks, but just give me more of this composer or composers. I don't know if it's multiple people, but I want more of that because I really like the soundtrack, the music in that. That's one of the rare games where I haven't turned the music off for it.
Yeah,
and that's actually very telling for me because, like I said, a lot of times I'll play when I get a new game. I'll play it for an hour, then I turn the music off and turn on my own.
Yes.
So,
and then Ark stands out. Yeah. So Assassin's Creed 2. There we go. And Ark Survival Evolved. So, thank you all very much for watching. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Darin
and to Peter.
Yes, and of course,
good luck.
Hey!
Hey!